get the question a lot, obviously, but it's just kind of a trend that happens, you know. And it's like we're not kind of making these stories and then people are watching them. They're choosing the stories they want to see. So for some reason, yeah, it's captured kind of the audience's attention right now. And I think it probably has a lot to do with what's happening in the world. That sometimes we feel like the world's a little bit broken in a way, and we've got to fix something. So you see that in a way, and you see, I think, the younger people of the generation today feel like they are looking for their place in this world, and I think those stories just somehow they kind of resonate with younger audiences, and in somewhat they're and in some ways they're very a universal kind of a struggle, It's probably the physical side of things, and just kind of the pace at which we had to shoot. Very much like the movie, it's constantly on the run. So as a film unit, we were also on the run. We were constantly going to new locations, and that kind of gives it its scope and scale, but also very difficult on the team, It's also extremely cold, which you don't really necessarily see. In Albuquerque, it actually gets very cold there, so we shot it, almost in winter. So even though we're playing it as a desert, it's actually freezing cold out there. So, just the physical conditions of the movie was definitely a challenge. So it started with basically the idea that what James created in the books, But I love the idea of doing something a little visually kind of interesting with them, and I love the idea of the kind of, the physical aspects of this virus and how it would kind of expose itself. It's not just you go crazy, but it actually starts to kind of invade and expand and take over the human host, essentially, I love that idea, almost like a cancer in a way. So we started with that kind of basic concept, and we worked with a bunch of artists and myself, and we kind of would come up with a design for these things, and then we kind of either build them in prosthetics with our makeup team, or we go to Weta and they would do full CG cranks that couldn't possibly be created in reality. So that was a lot of fun to kind of do that and do something that hopefully stands out in some way, Well, I like directing both. For me, it's all story, It comes down to storytelling, and there's definitely something that's a lot of fun to do with the animation side of things and having total control visually, but it still always comes down to that storytelling, Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be very different. It's going to be just like the second movie is very different than the first one. It's going to be very different too. The shape of the movie, the kind of engine of the movie is going to be very different. These characters, the world they're going to inhabit now is going to be very different. Same thing, it's a different color palette. I think that's kind of the unique thing about it, is that each little movie kind of stands on its own as a kind of its own unique look at a world. And hopefully they're all kind of stitched together to make one gigantic kind of universe for the story. But yeah, it's going to be basically about the end, It's going to be about the conclusion of all these different characters and their lives and how they kind of relate to this kind of larger issue going on in the world. So yeah, we're working hard to make it something special.